We have all felt it. A sudden, sharp spark of interest. An impulse to call a friend, start a project, or take a different route home. It feels like a burst of energy. But if we wait even an hour, the feeling begins to dissolve. The colors of the idea fade, the energy vanishes. We often call this a mood. We think we simply lost interest. But there is a more precise mechanism at work. Have you ever noticed how the most effortless moments in your life always happen when you act without hesitation? It is as if a window opens for a brief second and then quietly shuts. This suggests that your excitement is not just an emotion, it is a time-sensitive signal, and ignoring it might be changing your entire trajectory. We usually treat these moments as random events. We tell ourselves we were just in a good mood, or that things finally went our way. But something strange happens when we look closer. Think about a time when you acted on a sudden whim without overthinking it. Perhaps you bought a book on a stray recommendation, or joined a conversation you would normally avoid. In those moments, life feels light. Doors seem to open before you even knock. But we also know the opposite experience. We feel a clear nudge to move, yet we hesitate, we analyze, we wait for a more logical time. Suddenly, the path feels heavy, the momentum is gone. This pattern appears more often than we realize.
It suggests that we may have been overlooking a fundamental rule about how our reality actually functions. Why does the flow vanish just as quickly as it arrives? It is as if we are misinterpreting a vital signal that has been present all along. Stay with me, because in a moment you'll see why this hidden mechanism changes everything about the way you navigate your day. We often label these occurrences as good luck or a productive day. We think we are simply having a run of favorable circumstances. But if you look back at your history, a strange consistency begins to emerge. There are phases where every person you meet seems to have the exact information you need. Opportunities arrive just as you think of them. During these times, life feels like it is moving with a powerful current. But then, the pattern shifts. Suddenly, the same tasks feel heavy. Small obstacles become major roadblocks. We usually assume the world around us has changed or that our luck has run out. In reality, we are overlooking a repeating cycle. This is the strange consistency many people notice. The flow is never static. It appears to respond directly to the speed of our engagement. Have you ever noticed how quickly the momentum dies when you tell yourself you will do it later? The moment you hesitate, the vividness of the opportunity begins to dim. This is where the pattern becomes clear.
We have been conditioned to see these shifts as random coincidences, but the repetition suggests something deeper. It feels as if a door is being held open for a specific amount of time, and we are the ones deciding when to let it close. This is where the experience begins to make sense. We have been taught to view excitement as a simple emotional reaction, a byproduct of something good happening to us. But this reveals something important about how reality actually works. In this perspective, excitement is not a result, it is a resonance. It is a highly sophisticated navigation signal. Think of it as a biological compass pointing toward your most natural state of being. When you feel that spark of interest, you are not just having a feeling, you are perceiving a frequency match between who you are now and a version of reality that is already available. This teaching is far simpler than most people expect. It suggests that your excitement is a message from your deeper self, indicating which path contains the most support and the least resistance. Why would excitement act as a guide in the first place? Because it is the physical translation of your alignment with life itself. Suddenly, the pattern of flow and friction becomes easier to understand. The flow is not random, it is the result of following the signal. The friction is simply what happens when we ignore the compass. This mechanism has been operating in your life the entire time, even in the moments you never noticed. To understand why the flow behaves this way, we have to look at how reality is structured. Think of your life as a television broadcast. At any given moment, there are thousands of channels being transmitted simultaneously. Each channel represents a different version of your reality, some filled with struggle, others filled with effortless synchronization. Your excitement is the tuning dial. When you feel that spark and act on it quickly, you are effectively turning the dial to a specific frequency. You are not creating a new path. You are simply tuning in to a version of reality where the next step is already supported. This explains why the pattern behaves this way. The moment you hesitate or overanalyze, your frequency shifts. It is like moving the dial just slightly off the station. The signal becomes static. The path becomes heavy. Why does the flow disappear the moment we ignore the signal? Because you have literally tuned out of the reality where that flow exists. You are now perceiving a version of events dictated by doubt and delay. Suddenly, the shift makes sense. You aren't losing your luck, you are simply changing the channel. If the signal is so clear, why do we find it so difficult to follow? This is where many of us lose the signal. We have been conditioned to believe that life must be a series of calculated risks and logical steps.
Most people mistake this internal resistance for wisdom or responsibility. We interpret fear as logic and caution as maturity. How many times has a sudden spark of excitement been silenced by the voice of practicality? This is the moment the inner voice begins to argue. It tells us that we don't have enough information or that we should wait for a more secure moment. But as we have seen, waiting is precisely what causes the frequency to shift. By trying to be realistic, we inadvertently disconnect from the reality where the opportunity was actually viable. We choose the safety of the known over the alignment of the unknown. And suddenly, the excitement is replaced by doubt. We find ourselves back in the heavy, stagnant air of the stuck channel, wondering where the flow went. If you have ever felt this internal tug-of-war, I am curious to hear about it. Have you ever noticed yourself talking your way out of a signal that felt absolutely right? How different would a day feel if you followed the signal instead of the fear? Despite the internal resistance we all face, there is a simple method for navigating back into alignment. This is not a rigid set of rules, but a way of responding to the compass we discussed earlier. First, identify the option available to you in this moment that carries even the smallest spark of excitement. It doesn't need to be a life-changing mission. It can be as simple as a book you want to read or a walk you want to take.
Second, act on that excitement to the absolute best of your ability. Give it your full attention. Third, and most importantly, do this with zero attachment to a specific outcome. This is where the navigation begins. You are acting on the excitement because the signal itself is the reward, not the destination. By moving when the energy is high, you maintain your resonance with the flow channel. This process should feel light, driven by curiosity rather than pressure. This is how the signal becomes action and how the shift in your reality actually starts. If this perspective resonates with you, consider subscribing for more explorations into how consciousness and reality interact. Each step you take on that excitement, no matter how small, is a vote for a different version of your life. The change rarely starts with something dramatic. It usually begins with a quiet curiosity that you might otherwise ignore. Imagine you are working on a routine task when you feel a sudden, small urge to visit a local bookstore you haven't entered in years. There is no logical reason to go, and your mind suggests you should stay productive, but you choose to follow the signal. While browsing a random shelf, you strike up a brief conversation with a stranger,
who mentions a resource or a contact that perfectly solves a problem you've been dwelling on for weeks. This is often how the shift begins.
You may have already experienced similar moments without realizing their significance, dismissing them as mere coincidences. In reality, that small impulse was the tuning dial we discussed earlier. By acting quickly, you moved into a version of your day where that specific encounter was waiting for you. How many times has a small decision changed the entire direction of your day? The signal usually appears in these small, ordinary moments, inviting you to see that your routine is much more flexible than it seems. It shows that when you move with the spark, the world around you begins to rearrange itself to meet your new frequency. This suggests something remarkable about the nature of reality. We often view our lives as a single fixed track that we must struggle to move forward. But this revelation changes the way we understand the entire experience. It implies that you are not moving through one world, but navigating through an infinite field of already existing possibilities. Every version of your life already exists as a potential reality. In this perspective, your excitement is not just a passing mood. It is a highly precise frequency filter. It determines which version of reality you are currently perceiving. When you act quickly on that signal, you aren't just doing a task, you are shifting your entire existence into a different coordinate in consciousness. This changes the way we see every small impulse. Suddenly, the pattern reveals a deeper meaning.
You are not a passive observer of circumstances. You are a navigator, choosing which parallel reality to inhabit. Could these signals be guiding us toward versions of ourselves we have not yet explored? You may already be standing at the threshold of this realization in your own life. Every time you follow the spark, you are proving that reality is far more flexible than you were led to believe. The shift you are looking for may be much closer than you think. Perhaps the signal has been there all along, waiting quietly behind the noise of daily routine. You might find that in the coming days, your awareness begins to sharpen. Those small sparks of interest may feel a little brighter. The moments of hesitation might feel a little heavier. This is not because your life has changed, but because your focus has shifted. The pattern is already unfolding around you. Sometimes the shift begins simply by noticing that the world is more responsive than it appears. How often have these signals appeared quietly in your life, only to be dismissed? As you move forward, pay attention to the impulse that feels the lightest. The next chapter of this journey explores what happens when you consistently follow that spark and how it fundamentally restructures the path ahead. It reveals a deeper layer of how these signals begin to shape the physical reality you experience every day.